Congressman Mark Pocan on the line with us, taking your calls. Kamaru in Dayton, Ohio. You are on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Good morning, and thank you for everything that you do, both of you.
Thank you.
I would like to know why the Democratic Party is not speaking up about the cross-check program when they're speaking loudly and clearly about this Russian thing, which did not remove anybody from the voter rolls, but the cross-check program did remove people from the voter rolls, and yet we are hearing nothing about it from the Democratic Party. I want to know why.
Yeah. So first of all, you're wrong in your premise. I mean, a number of us have mentioned this, that a couple dozen states, people have been thrown off the voting rolls. A lot of us are talking about constitutional amendments to guarantee a right to vote. Today, Keith Ellison and Hank Johnson and I introduced a bill to safeguard our electoral systems, including making sure that they're part of the national critical infrastructure, which means we have cyber protections, but also requiring paper ballots and mandatory audits. We're talking about a number of things in that area. But the reason the Russia issue is important is because we have an intelligence report by 17 agencies that said they interfered with our elections and that they wanted Donald Trump to get elected, and they succeeded. And every day we're getting drip, drip, drip of more information about the connection perhaps between the Trump campaign and the Russians during the campaign. So that is important. So I think that's why people want that independent investigation. It's not saying we can't do A because we're doing B, because we're doing A and B and C and D and E and a bunch of other things around this front. And I think it's true. You can't have a democracy unless you've got strong electoral systems. And that's what we're trying to put together right now. But if the mainstream press doesn't pick these stories up, you think we're not saying it. And I think we are trying to cover those issues. And the issue you bring up is very important. If you're taking and purging people off for really very political reasons, because you can't really say someone in Ohio and someone in Idaho because one is Juan Lopez and the other one is Juan Jose Lopez is the same person. You can't say that, but that's what they did and threw people off. We're talking about it, but we're also talking about voting rights and elections that can't be, hacked and a whole lot of other things.
Yeah, I mentioned yesterday that at noon, several members of the House Progressive Caucus, that you're the first vice chair of, and a whole bunch of EPA employees were protesting right in front of the EPA. And basically they were holding a protest. And I said, let's wait and see if MSNBC or CNN picks up any reference to it. Not a peep. And here you got members of Congress joining a protest movement. I guarantee you if it had been 5 members of the Tea Party caucus anywhere in this city protesting with a half a dozen Tea Partiers, it would have been all over network television. How do we change that?
I'm with you, Tom. And how many of those we do a week. We do them around wage theft. We do them around a $15 minimum wage.
Oh, yeah, you guys are doing 2, 3, 4 a week. I get the emails. Nobody knows about it.
Right. So our difficulty, and maybe that's where people need to add to the list after they call their 2 senators and their representative every single day, is they should reach out to some of the major networks and going, hey, how come you didn't cover this? Or why aren't you covering alternative voices in Congress that aren't just the Tea Party? Right. I think we got to figure out how to do that, Tom. But it's probably one of the more frustrating things for me, because I know we organize a lot of activities. And when it doesn't get covered, people think we're not doing it. And yet we are. It's not real unless it gets covered. Right. Yeah. And it's a challenge we face on a regular basis.
Yeah. Tom in Albuquerque, New Mexico, listening on 1350 AM. You are on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan.
Yes, I'll make a quick statement here. There's been confusion, even with Obamacare, on who was covered, who wasn't. If you worked for a big company, was that Obamacare? And now I'm seeing people who are in the 62 to 64-year-old age group that I heard there's going to be great increases, but yet they work for a large company. I mean, who is this geared toward? There's no more mandates, so people don't have to join, and there's different policy, coverage costs for older people and younger people. So I'm just not sure who's this going to cover? Who's the new health care bill going to cover?
Yeah, Tom, that's a great question. And part of what they want to do is make sure there's confusion around this, because, like they're saying, well, you can't trust the CBO on this. Well, they're dead wrong. They're trying to make a comparison on why the Affordable Care Act, some of the numbers weren't right. Well, because some of the states didn't expand Medicaid, and there's other reasons. In this case, there's a couple things, let me say. One is if you get insurance through a private employer, you're impacted. When they do some of the changes that are in their so-called healthcare bill, you're going to have higher premiums going up, and that's going to affect everybody. So even though 20 million people access the Affordable Care Act, and many of them are going to lose access to their healthcare insurance, even people who don't get their insurance through the Affordable Care Act were affected by us holding healthcare increases down significantly, and other factors in the Republican bill are going to make people's rates go up. And one of the factors is people who are like, I think it's 55 and higher, are going to now pay potentially 5 times what others pay, significantly more, which is going to push more people out of healthcare who don't have those employer-provided plans. So everyone will wind up paying more out of this. More people, tens of millions more, won't have access to health care. And that means people will be sicker and more likely to die because they don't have that access. And when they go to the hospitals are going to pick up the costs for people who don't have insurance, which means all of us pick up the cost. So even people who have a private insurance plan through their employer are going to be picking up those costs then through other things, their tax dollars. This is all done so they can provide tax cuts to the wealthiest. So everyone is impacted by this policy. It may not mean everyone's going to lose their insurance. 24 million people are estimated to lose their insurance, but everyone's going to pay more for less health insurance.
And it'll also mean if you're getting insurance through your employer, that your employer can start choosing subprime plans again, and like Walmart did for so many years, giving people basically disaster insurance and calling it health insurance.
And a big part of it is when you have people getting preventive care, you save dollars to all of us down the road. That was
right.
Part of came out of this, and it's going to be different under their proposal. But I'll tell you, they had 3 people today on the Budget Committee, Republicans, vote against it. They could only afford to lose 4 people on the committee for it to not move forward. They're going to have a hard time getting this done. And there are a lot of Senate Republicans who are saying they won't go this way because of the cutbacks on the Medicaid expansion. A lot of people in their states will lose health care. So in the end, this may just be a vote done by the House, and it may just prove that the alleged wonkiness of Paul Ryan in this proposal aren't so much wonky, because there was this really about tax policy rather than health care.
Yeah. Mohammed in Redmond, Washington. You're on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan.
I just had a single comment on the EPA fuel ratings. Thank you for taking my call. So one of the companies that has been complaining about this fuel rating is Chrysler. And this year they had a Chrysler Pacifica minivan, which has a fuel rating of 83 mpgs. So I find it really hard to believe why it would cost another $200 billion to achieve the average fuel rating of around 55 mpgs by 2025. I just think it's just a ploy for profit and not really looking at the overall good for the society.
Congressman?
So I'm having a little bit of a hard time because I'm doing it through a computer.
Mohammed was pointing out that Chrysler's already making cars that exceed the fuel requirements, and that the Trump administration is saying that if the car makers have to meet these requirements, it's going to cost money. I think Progress published a piece this morning saying that, dropping those fuel requirements is going to cost American consumers $89 billion in added gas costs from driving gas guzzlers and things like that. So I guess it depends on how you want to play with the numbers, but we've got a minute until the break here.
No problem. Once any industry, whether it be around the clean air standards for utility companies or around the vehicle auto fuel efficiency standards, once they've gone down this path and invested money, it's going to cost them money to change anything as well. So it's not like they're doing the industries a whole lot of favors when we're all going to pick up other costs for having more pollution out there. I mean, at bare minimum, you'd think clean air and clean water would be in the best interest of everyone. So I think a lot of this is about, again, just trying to help a few industries like the oil industry, for example, which are some of the people that happen to love going to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. Yeah, and to fund Republican politicians. I mean, they're so encaptured to the fossil fuel industry, they're willing to lie about climate science.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's been one of the strange things here is that, people, when they bring a snowball on the floor of Congress and they think they're making a point, the point is they took a lot of money from those industries. Yeah, absolutely. That is very much the point. We're talking with Congressman Mark Pocan for the hour. He's taking your calls. He represents Wisconsin's 2nd District and does so brilliantly. He's also the first vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
and his website, pocan.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep, as in Representative, Rep Mark, M-A-R-K, Pocan, P-O-C-A-N. We'll be right back with the Congressman.